All right, we're picking up right where we left off. Last class, I showed you how to calculate all of this by hand. We went through the whole process. And now what we're going to do is we are going to learn how to speed up the process. So what I have done is I am going to show you how to do this stuff and some other important stuff in the calculator. So if you have your graphing calculator, you want to take it out right now. It is time to pause the video, go find your graphing calculator, and have it out and ready. If you do not have a graphing calculator, there is an app called GraphInCalc 83. I will type that. I don't know where I'll type it, but I will type it right here in a Word document. Okay? If you don't have a graphing calculator, there is an app called letter N, Calc 83. This app can do basically everything a graphing calculator can do. So you're going to want this graphing calculator app if you don't have a graphing calculator. At school, I can help you get one when you're at school, but for at home, we're going to want to have the GraphInCalc 83 app and our calculator, ideally a calculator. So I'm going to go back. Here's the data again. If you need to pause the video to put the data in now that you have your calculator, pause the video and grab the data. I will show you where to put it, but you can scroll back to here. Okay, so when you're on your calculator, this is a regular old graphing calculator. You can see here's all the regular buttons. Here's the screen. Whenever we are putting data into a calculator in this class, we are going to start by finding the stats button from our home screen, and you're going to press stat. And whenever we want to put data into the calculator, you go to edit. And then you will see your calculator has a bunch of lists. Well, what I have done to save time for you guys is I have typed the data. There were 11 data points. There they all are. I have typed the 11 data points into the calculator in list 1, L1, list 1. Once the data is in the calculator, it is very easy from here. You press stat again. You go over to calc. And we are going to do one variable stats, one var stats. And then the data is in list 1, so I will press calculate. And let me show you what happens here. Very important. Let me show you some things that are important and some things that simply are not important. On this, first, what you have here is very important. You have the mean. X bar is the mean. We got that yesterday, but we calculated it by hand. Look how quickly the calculator just gave it to us. We also have SX. This is the 11.59 we got yesterday. On this first page, the rest is nothing to us. S sigma x squared, sigma x. Okay, now N is the sample size. That's good to always know that you put the right data points in. That is always in this class going to be sample size. This is again, of course, the mean. This is standard deviation, SD, standard deviation. So that's mostly what you'll see on the first page. That's your important mean and standard deviation and sample size. Now what you can do is you can scroll down on the calculator, hit the down arrow. And what you'll see is right past the sample size is, of course, our 5-number summary. It's sitting right there, 5-number summary. So there it is, the 5-number summary. While I'm here, I might as well check to see if this data from yesterday indeed had outliers. So let's do an outlier test just to remind ourselves. Outlier test. We've done this already, but we're doing a double check. First thing to do is Q3 minus Q1. In this case, 92 minus 72 is 20. The next step is to do 1.5 times the answer of 20, and that is 30. Then you do two steps. Two separate steps. Step 1 is to do Q3 plus the 30, which in this case is 92 plus 30. We definitely, after you do that, you get 122. We definitely don't have any test scores higher than 122 because higher than 122 would be an outlier. The other step is to do Q1 minus 30, which in this case would be 72 minus 30, which is 42. We do not have any test scores lower than 64, so we definitely don't have anything less than 42. There are no outliers here. That was just, with this 1var stats and a little bit of math, you are able to get your mean, your median right there. You are able to get your standard deviation. You are able to get your whole 5-number summary. So you do not need to do these things by hand again. When you are given the data, you get to practice this on the calculator. Wonderful. I want to end the notes here by talking about, now that you know how to do this stuff on the calculator, it is very important you understand when to use which tool. So the standard deviation has some important properties. These notes are in the shell notes we started last class. These are in the 2-2, day 2 shell guided notes. So you don't have to write all these down if you just open your shell notes. Okay, properties of standard deviation. Standard deviation goes with the mean. Mean and standard deviation, they are partners. Use only standard deviation only when you use the mean as the center. Because remember, center, shape, spread, and outliers. Standard deviation of a sample, okay? We have different ways of looking at population standard deviations using different symbols that we won't need again till next chapter. So for now, SX is the standard deviation. Standard deviation can only equal 0 if there is no spread at all. What does that mean? It means every data point would be the same. That doesn't happen in real data sets. So standard deviation is always going to be greater than 0, nothing negative. And last thing is, standard deviation does indeed have units. If we are talking about test scores, then the standard deviation is in points on the test, the same thing as the real data. So when do we use which data set? Fill this in on the notes, fill this in on the standard notes. This is as important as it gets. When do you use the 5-number summary with the median as center and spread? When do you use the mean and standard deviation as center and spread? Here it is. The 5-number summary is usually better if the data is skewed in shape, and the mean and standard deviation are better when it's reasonably symmetric and no outliers. So if you have outliers, you have to pick the 5-number summary. If you have skew, you have to pick the 5-number summary. The only time we get to use the mean and standard deviation is when the data is reasonably symmetric with no outliers. Remember, the mean and standard deviation are strongly affected by outliers and by long tails on the skew. That is why the median, and we call it quartiles, that's the 5-number summary. Remember Q1, Q3? That's the 5-number summary. They are less affected. So we also want to know about, we're going to look at this in pictures also, but in order to check to see if the distribution is skewed or symmetric, we are able to look at the mean and the median. If the mean and the median are close together, then we can say the shape is roughly symmetric. Remember shape, we had 3 options, 1, 2, 3. If the mean is large, that means the mean gets pulled to the right, the data skewed to the right. Mean right, skewed right. If the mean, remember that's x bar, mean, x bar, is smaller than the median, the data is skewed left because mean left, skewed left. Again, this is all about reasonable. If they can be a little bit far apart and still be symmetric. This is where you see kind of differences. Here's how it looks in pictures. Skewed to the right means tail to the right. So the x bar, the mean, goes to the right. Skewed to the left, tail to the left. So that means shape is left skewed. If they are reasonably close, You typically have a symmetric distribution. You just want to make sure there are no outliers. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish a lot of worksheets, but now I want to catch you all up. You only have one new worksheet for today. If we look at Canvas, we have the 2 Day 2 Part 2 classwork. But if you were behind on anything previous, make sure you are doing it. Your guided notes got you through today. And now a recap of the calculator real quick. Stat edit is where you put the data. Let me show you how to clear a list. If you had a list you didn't want, like this one here with 8 and 5 in it, what you would do is you would go to the name of the list. Look at me highlighting L2. You hit clear and down, and it clears your whole list. So whenever you want to get rid of a whole list, you can do that. Clear and down. And then stat calc 1 var stats is how you can get the mean, the standard deviation, and the 5-number summary. It's wonderful. You don't have to do it by hand anymore. See you in class.